Sometimes having a mantra and just keeping it simple, learning one thing at a time, I think can be really empowering. Hello everyone, welcome back to Rachel's Studio, and in today's video, we're gonna look at a student critique. This student is Deb Flynn. Thank you so much to Deb for being brave and sharing your artwork with the whole world. So I'm gonna give Deb and you a really great mantra to just repeat in your head, especially if you're more of a beginner watercolor artist, but even if you're more advanced, this might be helpful. There is so much to juggle when you're learning to paint, and even more if you're learning to paint the most difficult medium, according to some people. But we're going to learn all kinds of things that Deb can do to improve this painting, but you can use these basic tenets that I'm going to talk about and apply them to any painting, whether it's a dog, cat, tree, flower, abstract even. These basic tenets of how to paint watercolor will help anybody. So let's go ahead and take a look at the suggestions that I had for Deb, and in a little bit we'll get to this mantra that I think could be really powerful for you if you're, especially if you're in like your first year of painting, but it might even be helpful further out. So let's go ahead and take a look at this footage.
And what a cutie pie. And already we see the personality of this dog coming through. Now, I am not sure if this is done, but this is what I would call a painting that is halfway done. You've got everything pretty much blocked in, and now it's time to start refining. And the eyes look really luminous. They just need the pupils, and they look so alive already. She did a good job capturing the basic proportions, and she's got a great start here. So I like how she kept the background soft and supportive. She took out the background that was in the picture, which I think was a great artistic choice. So already we've got a lot of good choices in. We've got some lights, mediums, and dark values. So that's a great start. So let's take a look at some of the things that I think will help Deb develop her artist eyes. And what I would suggest Deb needs to start looking at next in her journey of developing into a more and more knowledgeable artist is to look at shapes and not think in terms of painting a nose. I'm painting eyes. All right. And the shapes are created by different parts that have different values. The one that really sticks out to me that really is going to tell the story of this dog's personality the most are these big arcs of eyebrow shapes. And let's draw a line around this big shape that goes about like that. I think this is a really important shape, and it's light. So in watercolor, we paint around our lights. So I would say, Deb, I would say paint around this at all costs. Make sure that you don't paint that. You can paint that last. Keep it light. Now, really, if I'm going to take this out, if you're really looking at the values, all this in here is light too. It's really light. And it's hard to delineate it from this. But this is a clump of fur that's very different from back here. It looks like it's coming forward and it's in its own clump. So that's why I separate this into a shape for the good of capturing the personality of the dog. I would say this is the thing to work on when you first start the painting by painting around it. So I would depart from the reference a little bit and emphasize what you want to emphasize as an artist. So I personally would emphasize this as an artist and choose to make this even lighter than back here, because right now this area and this area are the same exact values. Remember, values are lights, mediums, and darks. Okay, so I would be really careful to save that. You could even add some of this to that value shape. And there's a little bit here that might be the finishing touch. Okay. And then another really important light shape I see is this little arc. So be very careful to paint around that. And in your painting, Deb, you've got it really soft, but it's light. So you could paint some dark. So if you want to capture this part, you don't paint that part, right? You paint around it. So say I have red paint and I'm going to paint around.
All right, we're about to get to the mantra. Are you ready? But before we get to the mantra, I just want to introduce myself. By the way, I don't want to be rude. My name is Rachel Parker Varner, and I like to teach not just the how, but the why of watercolor, so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. At the end of this video, I'm going to let Rachel from a month or so ago explain my paid offerings. But for now, let me tell you about my free offerings. I have a lot of fun things that you can join for free and join my online communities. And we learn so much from each other. So one of them is Facebook. There's facebook.com/groups/Rachel's Watercolor Workshop. And that's free. Or you can join my Patreon for free. And there is a chat section at patreon.com/RachelStudio/chats, where you can also upload your paintings for free. And if you ask for advice, by the way, in any of these places, we'll be glad to help you out. We love to give advice, but we're also polite. So if you don't ask for advice, we won't give it to you. We'll just be supportive. And it's such a great way to grow and learn from each other, to join these communities. There's also a brand new way. So far, it's only on the app here on YouTube. On my community tab, if you're in the on the app on a smart device, you can go to community. You can upload your paintings there and share your work if you don't want to get on Patreon or Facebook. And so I hope to see you online, and I will tell you more about my paid Patreon later. But let's get into this mantra that for me, even as an advanced artist, I was like, that's good. And I think this mantra many times when I'm painting. Here we go.
Say I have red paint and I'm going to paint around. You would paint all in here like that, around this, instead of painting the thing itself. That's negative painting, and we do so much of that in watercolor. We paint around our lights. When I first heard that, paint around your lights, I started using that as a mantra to help myself remember, paint around the lights, paint around the lights, like a robot in my head, repeating that. Here's some more lights a nice big shape. See, a beginner is going to paint these ears like this, and there's no delineation. And in fact, and this might be half done, Deb, you might not have. I assume this isn't done. So you've got this ear and it's all medium tones. This is a common place that beginners get hung up in. You could lighten this area and it's all one shape. Let me show you in the ear what I'm talking about. I already saw this. So this is a light clump of fur that all goes together because it's all touching each other, right? So this is light, so you paint around it. So when you're painting it, you're painting these sideways V's a lot. There's a lot of sideways V's painting, and then painting these little shapes in between hairs, but mostly just focusing on painting around these lights. See, I'm pretending to paint right now. And that's what it would look like. In a jagged fashion, don't make them match. Don't make the clumps match. All right, let's look at a few more shapes. And if you can't see these shapes well, just remember, these are shapes that are created by big clumps of values. So you look for big shapes that define areas. So to me, this really defines his hairy ears, this light clump of fur that is kind of over the darker ones. So look for those larger shapes. Here's another one that's really nice, that really tells the story of his hairy ears. See, that's one clump. And what makes it a shape is that it's all a similar value. And one of the ways that you can see these value shapes, and actually, you know what? I kind of did it wrong because this shape goes all the way around like that. If you make all the values join. Squint your eyes to look for these big value shapes. And this is also, look for Rembrandt edge opportunities. This is a really light area in his back. So you can make a light on light edge here. Here's another shape that defines his collar area and around his face. And as an artist, you can make light areas lighter and dark areas darker for definition. Like his lip has this tiny little highlight that you can barely see. I would make that a little lighter in your painting. And then another shape in his lip is this dark shape. All right. And then there's another shape of lighter fur along the bottom of his lip. So those are the small little value shapes in the detail areas you should pay attention to. And they're from values. Here's another great shape of fur fluff going up and over his nose. And it's made from dark values. Values are lights, mediums, and darks. And darks do all the hard work in a painting, not the color. The color steals the glory. All right. And then just in general, his face goes around like this. So I would make these edges light to really pop out his muzzle, and just squint your eyes at your reference and do what your reference tells you. Also, I see some cools versus warms. In through here is a big blue area. It's cool, like ice. So you could emphasize that. And then this is warm. If I squint my eyes, I can almost see purples or oranges. So I see a lot of oranger colors, like in this area. This has definitely a warm orange or purple look. Purple has red. Orange has red. Reds and yellows are warm. So I would pay attention to that too. And Deb, you did a great job with this dark eyebrow melting into the eye. Well done. And then I would just make the pupils bigger though, because the pupils are about like that, at least from what I can see. So you do need to put your pupils in, but I'm sure you know that. And another thing you need to do is to make your nose bigger. This is too small. So I would make your nose bigger. You could lift out with a scrubber and it'll make a nice soft nose for you anyway. Your nose needs to go more like that and down about like that. Just a little bigger. And then use the scrubber in here. Scrub, 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 scrub all along this top edge to give it a highlight, and then use dark paint. I'll switch to dark paint. You can even make your brush strokes kind of like this for this peacock tail shape over the top of his nose that really tells the story of his nose. And he also has this eyebrow that's fun that goes up like this. And then he's got this other eyebrow that almost melts into all this other black like that. And his darks come all the way under his eye like this on this side, not on this side. This lighter, because the light's coming from this direction, right? That's a really bad arrow, but you could put some darks in to pop out his eyeliner a little bit like that, and then paint around the fluff on the top of his, that wasn't a good mark. Paint around the fluff on top of the bridge of his nose. And just put in some of these bigger shapes of shadows between clumps. They're kind of like curving upside down V's, right? And that's so common in all fur and hair. You get these V shapes that are curving. So you want to make your brushstrokes this length of the fur in these areas. So you just need more darks. You've got a lot of mediums. Like along here, you need a dark to define his chin. And then this dark joins. I'm painting very roughly and badly, but I am in Photoshop working digitally. And all this joins to tell the story of his chin. So you paint around his lighter chin, right? In watercolor, you paint around your lights to find them, okay? And then he's got darks down in here that connect kind of down into this area. And just squint your eyes and you'll see these. This even goes down into here like this. And then there's dark V's down in here that you need to get in. Dark V's. And then the dark pupil with I like the glint in the eye that's over the dark of the pupil, and you can paint the pupil kind of around the glint like that and look good. And then this dark joins and goes across the nose, across this fluffy thing, and joins. See, the more you can join areas like this, the better. Okay, and you gotta darken all these I'm painting very roughly, but there's painting around the ear fluffs, around this big arc of fun eyebrow hair here with kind of purple reds. It's so pretty. And then some darks in here around the lighter fluffs, and the ear tips are dark. Just look at your values. You need to put in your darks now, really. And you're really going to be looking good when you get those pops of dark that this dog has that define the clumps, the larger clumps. Don't think individual. I know I painted these areas rough, but these should be pretty much solid curving upside down V's. So don't paint individual furs, paint the larger shapes. And that will help a lot. And a few more light brown textures through here, and purples and maroons. Lots of color in his coat. It's a lot of fun. Like that. Anyway, so that's where I would go next with this painting. So you are on track. You're just in the middle stage. Sometimes we call it the ugly stage. I don't want to call your painting ugly, but it's when you got a lot of medium values and you've got to get those popping darks in, maybe lighten a few more lights, adjust parts that got a little wonky, like the nose needs to be a little bigger, and you'll be done. And it's looking great, Deb. So carry on.
All right, thank you so much for joining me on this little critique of Deb's work. Didn't she do a lovely job getting started? All she has to do is put in the finishing touches and this painting will be there. And be sure not to miss, in fact, my kind of funny, my mom laughed out loud when she watched this video that I published last week about the art supplies that you need to use so you can fix your paintings. Like, you know how I told Deb she could scrub out the nose a little bit? She's only going to be able to do that if she used the right paper with the right art supplies. And I go into all of that in last week's video, which will also give you a chuckle. The cats are pretty funny that I animated some cats. So I'll let you go watch that. But be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out my comments below where I will link several videos that you might enjoy, some free stuff, and some other goodies. So be sure to check out my comments, and there's even more supply links in the description. So check all that out. I've got a free tutorial there as well if you want to try out my tutorial before you commit to a paid tier on Patreon. And by the way, Patreon is a place where you can subscribe to me. It's kind of like getting a magazine subscription that you pay monthly. It's so easy to cancel anytime. And you subscribe to me, and in exchange, you get tutorials, instant access to a whole library of tutorials, which I have over 200 now. So you don't get access to just one or two, you get access to over 200. There's a lot of advanced, intermediate, and beginner tutorials. I do have a list of tutorials from hardest down to easiest, so be sure to find that once you join. And if you like to paint loose, dreamy animals, you might enjoy my Patreon because that is my focus, although I do a little bit of everything. I just finished a Santa tutorial I'm so excited about, and I'll be sharing more about that in my free content too in probably October or November. So come and check out all my Patreon offerings, but at the very least, be sure to join my free communities. We have a great time. If you like this video, be sure to give me a like, leave me a comment, and if you really enjoy it, I really would appreciate it if you would hype my video. Somewhere down beneath my video, somewhere there's a hype button. All right, thanks so much for joining. Now go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody.